Okay, so now we're going to do dimensional analysis again. But this time, we're going to do some stuff that you're probably not as familiar with. We're going to do the metric system, because realistically, everything we do when we measure in here is measured in the metric system. So you need to know how to use those units to solve problems, which is why we went through this big, long process of teaching you how to do this with something you're already familiar with before we move into something challenging like the metric system, or when we start getting something called the mole, which is probably the hardest part. So the metric system, again, every measurement has two parts. It has a number and it has a unit. But in the metric system, or the SI system, the way they write the units are not feet, inches, yards, miles. Different words which mean measuring length. Okay? They have what's called a prefix, and then they have a base unit. And there's three main base units, and the prefix tells you the power of 10 to multiply the conversion in order to make it into the next conversion. They're all based on powers of 10, whereas the English system is 12 inches 1 foot, 3 yards or 3 feet 1 yard, 5,280 feet 1 mile. I mean, what is that? So metric system's a lot easier in a lot of ways. So the base units, for mass, it's the gram. It's about the weight of a paperclip. 1 gram is a paperclip. So clearly, you don't want to measure your body's mass in grams, because you're going to get a number like, 95,000 grams. And you're going to think, oh my God. So you have to recognize that the base unit can be very small or it can be very large. And what the prefixes do is they make it into a more manageable number for us to deal with. Length is the meter. It's about a yard. So that's not a bad measurement for things we make measurements of. Volume, technically volume is length times width times height. Well, if the official unit is meter, then the official unit for volume would be meters cubed. But that is an enormous volume. So to kind of scale it back to a measurable, reasonable size, they use decimeters cubed. And they call that the same thing as a liter. So if you think of a 2-liter soda, a liter is half of that. And this is another little conversion. 1 milliliter is equivalent to 1 centimeter cubed. Sometimes you'll hear doctors refer to cc's, give them 80 cc's of medicine or whatever. It means cubic centimeters or milliliters. That's what it stands for. Okay. Time, the official unit is second, but the other ones are used equivalent. They can't change time. They can't put that in a metric system so much. Temperature is officially measured in something called kelvins, although we'll use Celsius as well. This one we'll get to later. The amount of substance is called the mole. And here are the prefixes. Okay, this, I don't care if you know this or not. Okay, and in terms of the important conversions, the ones you're going to use the most often in this class, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, we will talk about how to do these, but not very many people use those. And beyond here, it's all 10 to the negative 12, 10 to the negative 15, and 10 to the negative 18. It goes in multiples of a 1,000th. And same thing here, 10 to the 9th is a gig, 10 to the 12th is a tera, and again, it goes in multiples of 1,000. It's just right here in the middle, they go by smaller conversions. So the easiest way, based on having taught this a very long time, the easiest way to do conversion within the metric system is to always convert to a base unit, meters, liters, or grams, before you mess with anything else. Okay, it's kind of like you can't change years into seconds, but you can change it into something you can manage, days. So you kind of work your way there. So in this case, within the metric system, because you guys aren't as familiar with it, a good idea is to convert it to the base unit, meters, liters, or grams, before anything else. And then always, just like before, set up the problem. Write the letters first. Make sure things cancel out the way they're supposed to. And then here's my little trick, and it seems to work pretty well. When you're doing a conversion within the metric system, you are almost always going to have a unit with a prefix and a unit without, okay, a base unit. So the rule is, my students, is to put a 1 by the unit that has 2 letters. That is the one that has the prefix. And then you're going to put the conversion by the base unit. And I'll show you how this works. And then you just multiply and divide as before. This is usually the best way to kind of keep it straight in your head. Okay, so 83.2 millimeters to meters. Now you might be able to move the decimal on here, and I get that. That's fine. But it's really important to understand this process because you won't always be able to do that when we start talking about moles and something called stoichiometry. Okay, so start by writing down the number, 83.2 millimeters. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the unit you start with and put it on the opposite side of the fraction to cancel out. And in the metric system, I want you to always make sure that your conversions have 1 with a prefix and then 1 without. In other words, in this case, since I started with a prefix, it went on the bottom. That means the base unit is going to go on top. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters, and then you're going to look up this conversion, the first letter, and you're going to put it here, 10 to the negative 3. So 0.0832 meters. And here's the other nice thing about the metric system. All it is moving the decimal around. It doesn't change this 832 at all. That's still there. It just moves the zeros around. In terms of sig figs, that has 3. So does this. Remember, leading zeros don't count. Okay? 0.096 liters to start with. Whatever I give you goes on the bottom to cancel out what you're trying to find. And in this case, since I'm starting with a base unit, that means I'm going to try and find the prefix right away. Remember what I said, there's always going to be one conversion with 2 letters and one with 1. So here's my conversion with 1 letter. Here's my conversion with 2. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters. And put the conversion for this, centi, 10 to the negative 2. It's not very good, negative 2, on the bottom. And so when you do that, you get 9.6 centiliters. Okay, in terms of sig figs, 2 and 2. Okay, next one. 4.750 e to the squared hectograms, Hg on the bottom. And again, if you're given a prefix, you want to go straight to the base unit. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters, and then conversion for hecto is 10 squared. So you get 4.750 e to the 4th, or your calculator might say 47,500. Okay. In terms of sig figs, though, this has 4. That means you have to kind of leave it like this. You can't leave it like the 47,500 because that has 3 sig figs. Stick a decimal in there, and all of a sudden it's got 5 sig figs. So this is the only option, not this. Okay. And then the last one, 0.0035. And it's like a U with a long tail in the front. Micrometers. Micrometers in the bottom. Now notice, I don't have a base unit mentioned. And this is where the trick comes in. Whatever you're given, if it's not a base unit, you want to change it to the base unit, in this case meters. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters. The first letter, the prefix, determines the conversion factor. So micrometers cancels out. Now, I don't want meters, I want decimeters. So M on the bottom, DM on top, M's will cancel out. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters. This is 10 to the negative 1. And so then you just type it into your calculator. Don't forget you need to know how to do this. Okay, we didn't spend all that time teaching you how to do this to have you forget it all. So you get 3.5 e to the negative 8, and the unit would be decimeters. Okay, sig figs is 2 and 2. Okay, so go ahead, take a couple of minutes, see if you can do these guys. Pause the movie if you need to. Okay, so now 0.530 capital M, and make sure it looks like a capital M. So megaliters, megaliters in the bottom, liters on top. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters, and then mega is e to the 6th. Megaliters cancels out. And now you're going to put liters in the bottom, 1, and then decaliter. We probably won't use this one very much just because it's confusing, so we're just going to leave that one alone. But deca is e to the 1. And so you have 0.53 times e to the 6th divided by e to the 1. You get 53,000. But it should have 3 sig figs, so 5.30 e to the 4th decaliters. Okay. Next one, 0.792 grams. Sorry, kilograms. Let's try reading properly. Kilograms in the bottom to cancel out. Go to the base unit every single time. 1 kilogram, because there's 2 letters, 10 to the 3rd. Kilograms cancels out. Grams in the bottom to cancel out. Milligrams on top, put a 1. 10 to the negative 3. Grams cancels out. Multiply and divide. And you get 792,000. And you can leave it that way, as long as you don't put a decimal in there. Milligrams. Okay. 1.83 e to the negative 3rd centimeters. Again, there's no base unit, so centimeter here. Meter is the base unit. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters. And here's an important trick. A lot of times people look at the meter and think it means milli. It's not. You want to use that first letter to come up with the conversion. Centi determines the conversion, not meter. Centimeters cancels out. Meter on the bottom. Nanometer on top. Again, 1 where you see 2 letters. And the N determines the conversion, 10 to the negative 9. And you get 108 or 18,300 nanometers. Okay, so it's the same exact process. There's a couple of tricks to make your life a little easier, but it's the same exact process as what we did before. Okay, with area and volume, it's going to be the same thing. Put a 1 by the unit with the prefix, and put the conversion by the base unit. But remember, the units have to cancel out. So if you're doing area, that's length times width, which means you're looking at something meters squared. You're going to need to do it 2 times. Repeat the exact same thing 2 times. And volume is length times width times height, which means you're looking at meters cubed, which means you're going to have to do that conversion 3 full times. All right, so go ahead, pause the movie if you want. I'll put the answers up here in a second, and then we'll be done. So 8.25 meters squared. Meter on the bottom. Okay, it's already in a base unit. I don't change it to a base unit because that's what I'm starting with. So I'm put DM in top, put a 1 where I see 2 letters. Deci is 10 to the negative 1. But since it's meters squared, what I'm going to do is I am going to rewrite this exact same thing so that the meters squared cancel out. And when I get 82.5. And I do the math. 82.5 divided by 10 to the negative 1 divided by 10 to the negative 1. Is 8,250. 8250. 3 sig figs, decimeters squared. Okay, 175 centimeters cubed. This one's going to be a long one because it's not a prefix. That means the first thing I'm going to do is change it into base units, not a base unit. So 1 centimeter, 10 to the negative 2. Because it is cubed, I have to do it exactly the same thing 3 times. Centimeters, 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 centimeters cubed. So if I was to stop right now, my units would be meters times meters times meters, or meters cubed. That's not what I want. What I want is get rid of the meters, and I want it to be hectometers. 1 hectometer is 10 squared. 1 hectometer, 10 squared. And again, repeat the exact same thing 3 times. So what you've got is 175 times you get a really small number. 1.75 e to the negative 10 hectometers cubed. Okay, so just kind of pay attention to that. And then this last one, this is probably the hardest one there is. You're going to take them one step at a time, just like when we did the feet and inches. We're going to take them one at a time. So 4.2 e to the negative 6 megagrams, make sure it looks like a capital M, per deciliter. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover up the deciliter and pretend it's not there, and I'm just going to go megagrams to centigrams. So megagrams on the bottom, go to the base unit. 1 mega is e to the 6th. That cancels out. Then grams on the bottom to centigrams, because centigrams is what I want on top. 1 there. E negative 2. Grams cancels out. So when you're all done here, what you left with is 420. Oops, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I thought I was done. I'm not done. If I was to stop right now, I would have centigrams over deciliters, and that's not what I want. So what I want to do is keep that. My pen back in here. I want to keep that, but I want to get rid of this deciliter. So I'm going to put deciliter on top. In order to cancel out, they have to be on opposite sides. Go to the base unit, which is liter. Put a 1 by the prefix. Conversion is 10 to the negative 1. Liters is here. Deciliters cancels out. Liters on top. Kiloliters on the bottom. Liters will cancel out. Put a 1 where you see 2 letters. E to the 3rd. So when you're all done, you have 420 times e to the 4th. Wow, big number. 4,200,000. And the units are centigrams on top and kiloliters on the bottom. 2 sig figs, 2 sig figs.